We all love a good book-to-screen adaptation, but sometimes the differences between page and screen can completely change the trajectory of an entire universe. Game of Thrones gave us some of the most iconic moments in television history, but to get there, the showrunners threw out, heavily modified, or entirely invented massive chunks of George R.R. Martin's source material. Some of these changes streamlined the narrative into television gold, and others completely derailed characters we loved. Today, we're breaking down 10 of the biggest deviations from the books, analyzing how they impacted the story, and ranking every single one on our ultimate tier list, from horrible to awesome. This is World of Westeros Explored. Let's dive straight in. 1. The fate of Barristan Selmy. If you only watch the show, you likely remember Sir Barristan the Bold meeting an unceremonious and sudden end in a Meereenese alleyway in Season 5. In contrast, the books keep him very much alive. He is currently acting as Hand of the Queen and ruling Meereen with an iron fist while Daenerys is away. Killing him off prematurely robbed Daenerys of her most experienced, wise, and loyal military advisor, forcing her to rely on impulsivity earlier than necessary and eliminating a major POV perspective in Essos. We gain a shocking, dramatic death scene in the early half of Season 5, but we lose a brilliant political anchor for Daenerys' storyline in Essos and sacrifice internal narrative logic. Because it traded long-term strategic depth for a cheap, unearned shock that ultimately hurt Meereen's plotline without paying off in a meaningful way, we're rating the fate of Sir Barristan Selmy as pointless. 2. The creation of the Night King. Show watchers know the Night King as the icy, blue-eyed mastermind villain who leads the army of the dead and serves as the ultimate boss fight for Jon Snow. However, the books do not feature a Night King at all. The others are a mysterious, ancient, almost eldritch force operating more like a terrifying hive mind. It anthropomorphized an existential threat into a generic fantasy trope. While it gave Jon Snow a clear face to fight, it ultimately crippled the thematic nuance of the White Walkers when the entire threat was ended by a single knife drop. We gain a tangible, clear-cut boss villain for the heroes to focus on and rally against, but we lose the terrifying, Lovecraftian mystery and thematic weight of an unstoppable, mindless natural disaster. Because it stripped away the unique, complex nature of the book's existential threat and reduced it to a standard fantasy cliché that dissolved anticlimactically, we are rating the creation of the Night King as pointless. 3. Changing Asha Greyjoy into Yara Greyjoy. Show fans know Theon's fierce, seafaring sister as Yara Greyjoy. Book readers will note that her original name is actually Asha Greyjoy. The showrunners changed it simply to avoid viewer confusion with Osha the Wildling, a minor aesthetic and naming tweak that had virtually zero negative impact on the story, while keeping her core role as Theon's fiercely loyal sister intact. We gain instant audience clarity and prevent viewers from confusing two similarly named characters, while losing absolutely nothing of substance from the original text. Because it solved a practical television adaptation hurdle cleanly without altering character integrity or narrative quality one bit, we're rating the name change to Yara Greyjoy as effective. 4. Stannis Baratheon burning Shireen. Viewers were left horrified when show Stannis decided to burn his innocent daughter Shireen at the stake to melt the snows outside Winterfell. In the books, Stannis is currently miles away, snowed in with his army, and Shireen is safe at Castle Black. George R.R. Martin has stated this will happen in the books eventually, but the execution in the show felt abrupt. It instantly destroyed Stannis' fiercely loyal, duty-bound character by having him sacrifice his daughter out of tactical desperation, leading to an anticlimactic end for his arc. We gain a profoundly dark, emotionally devastating moral crucible that highlights the fanaticism of war, but we lose the meticulous slow-burn pacing needed to justify a character breaking their core code, because it delivered an undeniably powerful, tragic milestone for the overarching plot. Even if the television build-up felt rushed, we're rating Stannis burning Shireen as effective. 5. Cutting young Griff, Aegon Targaryen. Anyone who only watched the show assumes Cersei was the sole remaining political threat in King's Landing before Daenerys arrived. In the books, Varys and Illyrio smuggled Rhaegar's surviving infant son, Aegon, across the narrow sea, and he invades Westeros to take the throne ahead of Daenerys. This was a massive structural change. It simplified the political landscape of Westeros, allowing Cersei to remain the primary antagonist in King's Landing, instead of dealing with a brand new Targaryen claimant taking the capital. We gain a streamlined, manageable television narrative that keeps the focus on core characters we already know, but we lose a fascinating layer of political chess and rightful claimant ambiguity. Because introducing a brand new major claimant late in a TV series would have bloated the runtime and confused casual viewers, keeping him out was a smart adaptation choice. So we're rating the omission of young Griff as great. 6. The Beyond the Wall Expedition, Season 7. Show fans vividly remember the blockbuster sequence where Jon, Jorah, Tormund, and the Hound go on a suicidal mission north of the Wall to capture a white and bring it to Cersei. This event does not exist at all in the books, plagued by massive logic and geographical timeline inconsistencies. Gendry running back to Eastwatch, ravens flying at light speed, Daenerys arriving with dragons in minutes. It existed purely to give the Night King an ice dragon to destroy the wall. We gain an excuse for an action-packed set piece and a way to gift the Night King an ice dragon, but we lose all internal logic, geographical consistency, and intelligent character decision-making. Because it shredded basic common sense, plot mechanics, and character intelligence purely to manufacture a flashy spectacle, we're rating the Beyond the Wall expedition as horrible. 7. Sansa Stark replaces Jeyne Poole. Show watchers watched in horror as Sansa Stark was married off to the sadistic Ramsay Bolton and suffered brutal abuse at Winterfell. In the books, Sansa is safe in the Vale, and it is actually a minor character named Jeyne Poole, pretending to be Arya Stark, who is forced into this horrific marriage. While it gave Sansa active agency and a return to the North, it forced a beloved main character into gratuitous trauma that contradicted the carefully built political safety of the Vale, and bypassed her book development under Littlefinger. We gain a localized convergence of plots by bringing a major main character back to Winterfell, but we lose Sansa's carefully earned political evolution and subject her to unearned, repetitive abuse. Because it sacrificed a main character's smart narrative progression just to recycle shock value trauma via a plot meant for a minor character, we're rating Sansa replacing Jeyne Poole as effective. 8. The Mad Queen turn of Daenerys Targaryen. Viewers watched Daenerys snap overnight in the Bells episode, burning King's Landing to the ground after a sudden descent into madness. While the books feature dark undertones and a looming internal struggle between mercy and tyranny, Daenerys is still in Meereen trying to navigate complex politics. The destination itself is almost certainly George R.R. Martin's intended ending, but rushing the character transition into a few episodes turned a Shakespearean tragedy into a jarring, unearned character assassination for many viewers. We gain the endgame plot destination that the overarching narrative needed to hit, but we lose the gradual, earned psychological transition required to make a hero's dark descent believable. Because it hit the right overarching story beat by torpedoing the character development timeline and rushing a massive heel turn in a few episodes, we're rating Daenerys' Mad Queen turn as pointless. 9. The Dorne and Sand Snakes plot. Show fans were treated to Jaime and Bronn going on a clumsy buddy cop rescue mission to Dorne to save Myrcella, fighting the campy sand snakes. The books feature a sophisticated, complex political web involving Arianne Martell, Quentyn Martell, and a secret plot to crown Myrcella themselves. Universally regarded as one of the weakest parts of the later seasons, it robbed Dorne of its political depth, reduced compelling characters to caricatures, and wasted Jaime's character development. We gain an excuse to send Jaime and Bronn on a cross-continental road trip adventure, but we lose all the political intrigue of Dorne, replacing rich source material with cringeworthy dialogue and botched action scenes. Because it produced some of the most universally panned, poorly written, and out-of-character sequences in the entire series run, we're rating the Dorne and Sand Snakes plot as pointless. 10. The omission of Lady Stoneheart. Show-only fans assume Catelyn Stark's story ended permanently at the Red Wedding. Book readers know that her corpse is recovered from the river and resurrected by the Brotherhood without banners, turning into a vengeful, mute revenant bent on hanging Freys and Lannisters. It removed a major dark supernatural consequence of the Red Wedding, and left Brienne and Jaime's Riverlands arcs without their book conclusion. However, it streamlined the television narrative around the main political players. We gain a tighter, more focused television runtime that avoids introducing a grim zombie vengeance subplot late in the game, but we lose a chilling moral consequence of the Red Wedding and depth for Brienne's journey. While missing out on a great dark fantasy element stings, it ultimately kept the TV narrative from bloating too far sideways, so we're rating the omission of Lady Stoneheart as pointless. Adaptations are never easy, and translating an epic as sprawling as A Song of Ice and Fire into a television format means hard choices always have to be made, some brilliant and some utterly baffling. Do you agree with our tier list placements, or did we do your favorite book plot dirty? Drop your own rankings down in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more videos like this.